back on record, go ahead.
I was going to say, so we brought David Cloninger down here to answer some more questions for the board in response to his notice of intent to respond. I will tell you, Dave, that I gave him we tried to call you right at the front end of this, but couldn't get in because, of course, you're having an office meeting there. I told him just some of the very basics of this. Okay, so now they have some follow-up questions.
Okay.
Ted, you.
Yes, the information that I have.
Yes, sir.
That you have access to, does the general public have access to?
Everybody does, yes, sir.
How do they get that information?
It's on purchasing's website. We've had our website up and active for the last 4 years. Construction bids, service bids, the sidewalk vendor bids, it's all available.
Okay, if I go on your website, can I get this sheet?
Yes, sir. Every bit of
It's
it.
published on the
Yes, sir.
website.
So actually, what people did pay, what the winning bids for each one of the
Yes, sir.
locations were. Okay, so
Everything there is, we've been clear and transparent with this program ever since it came to our office to put the bids on the street years ago. And prior to that, they used to do a lottery system through the clerk's office, and they don't do that anymore because it was just, there was just difficulties with it. So it came to purchasing about, I want to say 10 years ago, I think is when it started coming to purchasing. And it's been a bid system ever since. So it's always sealed bids. Nobody knows what anybody else is bidding until everybody walks in the room. And the person that's conducting the bid opening opens the envelopes, just like I do for all my construction bids, just like I do when I have a bid on the street. Nothing happens until the envelope is opened and make sure all the stuff is right, whether you got a responsive person, responsible, etc. They got all their paperwork, all their bonds, and all that stuff if they need it, and that's what we do. Because we make sure all those little squares are filled. When it came for this, we'd open the bids and we'd record the bids, and there'd be 15, 20 people sitting in a room and listening to what we were bidding for each slot. Nobody knows what it is until we're opening the bids. Now nobody gets to come in after we start the meeting. Nobody can come in a room so that there can't be, anything like that happening. So you can't have somebody sitting out in the hallway, get a bid open and telephone back and forth, anything like that. So it's just always been, our sealed bid procedures follow that.
Okay. When if I want to bid on this, there's an application to fill out, I presume.
Yes, sir. It's we have a bid form that's available right now. It's on the new one that's out right now is available on.
I fill it out, and it has to be in by a certain time and date.
Yes, sir.
And I turn that in, and that sits in a secured place in a sealed envelope.
Yes, sir.
Until bid opening.
Yes, sir. It sits at our front desk. They have a cabinet. They unlock the cabinet. They put the bids in it, and then on the time of opening, the bids are collected out of there, and they walk in. They stamp the back of the form, the bid abstract. They stamp the back of it and walk in the meeting.
So Price Waterhouse isn't involved in this.
Okay.
What we're looking at is, should your wife be a successful bidder?
Correct.
And I'm sure Dee's discussed it, but
Yes.
Apparently we could potentially be dealing with a notice of potential violation later on.
Yes, sir.
Because of what could potentially be an appearance of potential
Of
violation.
impropriety, yes, sir.
And
I'm
that's
fully
where
aware. Yes, sir.
that's where the issue is. You can keep the pillow talk to a minimum and not tell anything to your wife, but that doesn't. The person, one of these 7 or 8 people or 10 people, could say, "Well, wait a minute, no, she had an inside."
And again, they can do that. Anybody can make that claim.
Right.
However, because we are doing a sealed bid process, there's no advanced knowledge that I have that everybody else doesn't have. Everybody has their own business. All these people have been doing this for years. If you look closely at these abstracts, you'll see the same 4 or 5 families.
Mm-hmm.
And I hate to bring that up, but it is a fact. There's 4 or 5 families that bid these every year. And there's some families have more than one in their family. And it's all valid because there are multiple business licenses issued. There's 1, 2, just to give you an idea, and you guys can look it up and check any of this out.
I see one family.
With Tia. Tia is Eugenia Petrago. She has Tia's Gourmet Dogs. She's the one with the big yellow umbrella. Her husband's name is Hyro, and sometimes he bids and picks a slot. They have a daughter named Marcella. She generally bids and has a slot. And then Daniel, their son, also has a slot.
Okay,
All
so
of them
yeah,
have separate-
I see them all on here.
Yeah, that's just that family. Then there's cousins that have bid together in the years past, in the years that I've been doing this. We have different contingents right now. As an example, slot 1 is being chased by a guy that's had it for 4 years. And I knew him long before I came to work for the city.
Dave, can I
when
stop
worked in
up? Okay,
construction.
so you know that this guy has been chasing the slot for 4 years.
Mhm.
Everybody else knows that, has that
Yes,
same knowledge,
okay.
what you just said?
Everybody. It's amazing if you guys could see the bid opening. When we do our pre-bids, now, I'm close to it because I've been involved in it. Most of the people are not speaking English in the room. They're keeping it from any of us. Okay, it's a tremendous Hispanic group that are talking back and forth. Even, and I don't mean this in a bad way, I really don't. Slot number 2 is now won the last couple of years by a Korean group that has one of the Korean restaurants downtown. And that allows them the connection. But what they did was they sent a person that understood Spanish to the meetings so they could find out what was going on. Because they're all trading back and forth. These people all know each other. They've known each other for years.
You mean, so let me get this straight. It sounds like, say, one family will have more than one member of the family. They bid on these different locations.
Mhm.
Once they are the successful bidder for that location,
Mhm.
they may end up, and once they have that information, or they may pass that slot around, or, I know they can't because they probably have one person's assigned to it, but.
Correct.
But is that
We try to avoid
conversation-
that happening, but what happens is the family actually has 5 separate business licenses. Okay, when they go to right of way and they fill out the permit application,
Right.
they have to identify to right of way who the permittee is
Right.
and the alternate. Neither one of these 2 people can be on any one of those other slots. They make sure that happens, or that doesn't happen. Okay, as an example, the ones I'm most familiar with is Eugenia, is Petragos. They always have 2 or 3 slots every year. Eugenia is listed as a primary, and Hyro, if he didn't get a slot as a primary, he is her alternate. Then it'll be Daniel and his wife, and then it'll be Marcella and her husband. You know, so they do it that way, and they're all still covered. They've met all the requirements. They've got their business license. Here's what it's for. They all go through DHHS. They get their food handlers permits. They go over to right away. I wish Jack Frost was here. He's the chief of code enforcement. I've been dealing with Jack for 9 years doing this. Whenever at one point, it was handled upstairs with Mary Jane Michaels when she was still here, when Mayor Begich was the mayor. And Mary Jane's department ran it. And so I worked with their 2 ladies when this thing was first coming back into our office. So the only thing that's happened is it's now over right of way is the controller of it. We're just putting the administrative paper out on the street and following established bidding procedures, because that's what we're set up to do. So everything, and then honestly, everything that's available here is available to everybody. The sites, what you want it for, section 24.75, which is your code that covers operating the sidewalk vending program within the right of way. Everybody's familiar with that, and everybody is familiar with DHHS. What happens, and has happened, you'll see people that have bid certain slots and couldn't get through DHHS. They didn't pass their health permit, or they didn't.
So the second bidder is awarded?
No, what happened is once we've collected the money, we take and send them off their merry way. If they don't make it, if they don't get through any part of the rest of the permitting process, whether it be through DHHS or right of way, they've lost their money. We tell them up front in their thing, you make sure you've got all your stuff covered before you submit your bid. And
What
sometimes
happens
it
to
takes.
that slot?
Pardon?
What happens to that slot?
In the years past, at one time, we re-advertised them, and we got, it was fiasco, seriously. Because nobody wanted to bid it. Now the numbers are on the street and everybody's trying to buy it for $1. Yeah, and so the purchasing officer said, we'll just leave the slots vacant, and a few years that has happened. It's not the popular spots, I guarantee you. Out of the 8 that we have here, these 8 have been constant. Of these 8, there's 4 that are the prime, or 5 if you want to throw in yellow. And that's all the 5 that are on 4th Avenue. Those are prime. Top dollar every year. The other minor ones have had different people trying to do it. Salmon Express one year tried to come in. And he was going to take the spot over behind Performing Arts Center. He couldn't get through DHHS because he had fresh salmon that he was grilling. And they wouldn't allow his refrigeration procedures. Because it's fish, and there's more things that go with that, being able to control that. There have been people that, last year we had a guy that wanted to sell phone cards. So he got a slot and went to try to set up. He was set up for a week. He paid us a couple $100 to get his slot. Tried to sell phone cards. I don't think he sold 2 cards in 2 or 3 weeks. So he just folded his tent and left. Hasn't been back. But he followed all the procedures, went and got his permit, paid the fee over it right away, and did that. So that has happened a few times. And there's been a few years where, as an example, if you look on 4th Avenue, slot number 4 didn't get somebody. Because we were trying to keep, to avoid conflicts of the past, we will not have all 3 sidewalk vendors able to sell hot dogs at all 3 locations, because it creates stress in everybody there.
Yeah.
So what we've done, based on Mr. Michaelis' suggestion a long time ago, we won't have them next to each other. If we put somebody else in the middle here, because those 2 are always going to be hot dogs. If we put somebody else here, that's other food or a non-food vendor, and that's how we have it structured. That's how the office has done it for a number of years. So we've tried to keep it, our office has succeeded in keeping the separation, keeping the strife out of it. But then when it comes time to the bid opening, they're all in their tents with each other because they don't know who's going to bid what slots. Some of these guys would love to take the main slots out.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, where does it say, I'm sure, in fact, I know some of the food ones are, but, 4th and E, it's
Okay.
the most popular one. And that's
Slot number 5 on the map. Yes, sir.
And that, but where does it say that slot 5 is a food?
It's in the solicitation procedures that come out on the street every year. There's a map. I didn't include that here.
Okay.
They're all online right now. The map.
We have a map.
And, okay, there's the map, but there's a chart that goes with the map that says slot 1 can be anything, 2 can be anything, 3 can be anything, 4 has to be anything other than hot dogs. And then number 5 is hot dogs. 6 can be anything. 7 can be hot dogs. 8 has to be anything but hot dogs.
So when it says hot dogs, it has to be hot dogs?
No.
You can't have burgers?
No. See, burgers, people try to do burgers out there and they won't pass through DHS because it's raw meat. It's not processed. I'm serious.
So you have to have pre-cooked hot dogs or pre-cooked burgers before you can do burgers.
I don't know. DHHS has rules about the meat coming out on the street.
Well,
I said, my goodness.
You understand, this is the reason why we have the notice of solicitation, is to go over these kind of issues so that we can then hopefully forestall any other complaint later on. Like, yes, we went through this.
Correct.
And, we asked you the questions ahead of time.
Mhm.
So, from what I'm hearing, and I can't speak for these other 2 gentlemen here, but from what I'm hearing, everybody has the same advantage.
Yes, sir. Across the board. The only thing that's happening right now, and I'll be real honest with you, and I've been honest with Dee and my bosses. My wife lost her job in November. She's been with the company for 15 years. And so after she came back from a surgery, she was back at work, took a small vacation after the surgery. She was out on short term. Took a week vacation. She came back and they handed her papers, said sorry. And it just happens in the business world. So she's been sitting there trying to figure out what she was going to do. And I told her many times about this. Because we originally were going to set up my stepdaughter doing one of these. I said, have her go do it. It's going to make some money. And you have to be out there. You're going to have to keep building it. You have to do all that good stuff.
But she
So
has
it's
to
an
go through
opportunity.
exactly the same steps as everybody else?
Yeah, everything, honestly, sir, everything that I'm telling you is available. None of the information is secret.
Well, I hope you realize why we're asking.
Oh, yes, sir, absolutely. Yes, sir.
I know these people, and if they don't win, they're gonna file a complaint.
And the other thing is, I can tell you guys point blank, I'm not going after him. When I say I'm talking about my wife, and I've had discussions about this ad nauseum. It'd be foolish for us to go attack the big dogs. That's not smart.
But we have to defend ourselves.
Yes, sir, absolutely. And I understand that.
Well, and it's not as though we're avoiding, we deal with, unfortunately, more notice of detention violations than we like to have, but at the same time, that's why we're here.
Yes, sir. And I do understand that.
So, but doing our homework ahead of time like this allows us, because if we didn't see this ahead of time,
Mhm.
and a notice came in, I gotta tell you, at the first read, it would
Sure.
look bad.
Sure.
Does the website include information such as, for the non-hot dog ones, what kind of product they were selling?
Mm-hmm. It's in the solicitation. It's also in code 24.75. The municipal code 24.75 says what you can do inside the sidewalk vending program.
So could somebody look back over history and say, oh, well, somebody did hot sugar nuts and they came back and did it again the next year, so they must have liked it or something like that, so they could like see what the trends were?
Mm-hmm. It sure
And you can
can.
probably see that phone cards are not a seller because everybody's a cell
Because
phone.
they did it once.
Because every-
No, but let
everybody-
Dave explain this, I think
Yeah.
that's an important question.
Yeah, it is.
So Dave, explain how a person would figure out historically what worked and what didn't work.
You'd have to be able to get a hold of the people. Is about the only way you're gonna know. Predominantly hot dogs, and you talk to anybody there who comes up here in the summer. Hot dogs are the big seller all downtown.
So if I went to the website, I couldn't necessarily figure out which products worked and which didn't?
That is correct. That information wouldn't be available unless you go down the right of way, pull their permit and see what they put on their permit. Now that's
Is
a
that
right of way.
information available to you?
Absolutely, that information is available to anybody. It's public record.
No, well, you just said. that.
But you
What's-
personally would know this because you have the historical information just from having a job.
Oh, yeah, just from taking the bids for all the years.
And Dave,
And the people talk also.
and can I ask
Sure.
do bidders historically have interaction with the purchasing department for information pre-bid?
All the time. I start getting phone calls in the past. I got phone calls on this as far back as November. People knowing that our office does it, people in the office send them to me. We got people asking questions about this.
Okay.
Where do we
Who
go?
will now handle that?
Namir.
Huh?
Namir Saad, the other senior
Uh-huh.
buyer that's in our department. He is handling everything. Once I made the announcements to my bosses, to Ron and Werner,
Uh-huh.
everybody understood, step away from it completely. I wasn't involved in any of the planning process here. The process this year, they're
Okay,
making some
Let me
minor-
stop you, Dave.
Yep.
So, at some point in this year's process, you did handle phone calls from, or did you? Did you
That-
handle?
All I did was pass on the information, told people where they could look on our website and section 24.75, where the code is. That's all I've done this in November, December, and January.
Are there any other senior buyers besides you and Namir, or are you the only two?
Namir and I are the two senior buyers. In our department, we have two senior buyers. We have a third person he's a senior buyer in training. So potentially three, and we have 3 line buyers.
And so there's, in the calls that you fielded to date on this process,
Pardon?
with respect to the calls that you may have handled
Mhm.
in this bidding cycle,
Mhm.
these are simple informational requests, not, can you help me out, or?
When, where do I go to find the information? When are you guys gonna put the bids on the street? When are they coming out? And so I always send everybody to our website. Because I get the same thing, as an example, in my bid world, in construction bid world, the HEC downtown and the plans room gets briefings from municipal officials way prior to when the bids actually come out on the street. So people know, here's what's coming out based on bond issues and things like this. It's a speckled map, here's what's coming out in the future. And a lot of times the contractors will just call me and say, do you have, is it in your hands yet? Are you putting it out yet? Do you know when they're gonna actually issue it? Because they're trying to balance their bidding work. So that happens in the bid world all the time. Fielding questions of general, when are you gonna do it? So we get that all the time. This instance is, everybody kept asking when we were gonna be doing it, and I've told everybody to, we do this historically every year, late February, March, every year, go look for it, and that's when it's gonna be on our website. And it's been that way on the website specifically for the last 4 years. So all that information is available. We always had information available. If people came in the front desk and said, what did the bids go for last year, we'd always go pull the old bids. And the clerks could do this. They pull the old bids and give the abstracts to the people asking the questions. So it's always been an open and transparent process. No secrets, no hidden anything for most people. The phone calls that I've gotten this year is just predominantly, when is it gonna be? When are you gonna issue it? A lot of people don't even know that 24.75, or didn't know that municipal code 24.75 is their actual reference point
Okay.
for how the program
How are
works.
they finding out about the regulations, or not the regulations, whatever it is, your procedure changes this year? How are bidders gonna be?
They're gonna find that in the solicitation. We're still doing it, it's still.
Oh, because you're putting out the solicitation.
The solicitation has been issued already. And actually what they're doing this year is, instead of everybody getting to come in the room at the same time and argue back and forth and make deals and things, they're gonna open one slot for one site, collect the money up front. In the years past, just an example, what was happening was people would bid on a position and they'd have to have their money into us in 2 days. Then they would come in 2 days and come up with 17,000 excuses why they couldn't take that slot and pass it on, and pass it down to somebody that was a lesser bidder. Oh, gee, it just happens to be in the same family. Yeah, I don't know.
Okay,
We've
so
tried.
there's good reasons for
Yeah,
this.
we tried to deadlock this where they take that away, so that what they're doing this year is one slot goes on the street, and we're catching the money up front. The people have in their packages, you have to submit a cashier's check in the amount of what your bid is. So you're gonna have to have your money up front, and you're gonna put it down on the table. That's your bid, that's what goes up on the board. The next day, site number 2. If you're not the successful bidder, you get your check back, and you can go on and follow the process for site 2, site 3, and on down the line. So all 8 sites are being handled on separate days this year to avoid potential collusion, trades in the back, families not able to stack it down.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
But give me, say the 8 sites or whatever, the number, all have the same deadline?
No, sir. Each one's a different day. Each
Yeah,
one will bid
for
on us.
opening.
Yes,
Different day for opening,
yes.
but they don't have to all be in the same day?
No, sir.
But couldn't there still be some,
They're gonna do that after they open the first bid. They can always do that downtown, but they won't be able to do it in a room. Because that's the other thing that was happening, is they were making games inside the room. Well, I can't get it, and so it drops it down the price, and the slots were swapping back and forth. So, in paying attention to all that stuff happening.
okay, but before you open the first bid,
Correct.
all the rest of the bids are in, the deadline is over?
On that specific site, yes.
No, on
the
all
site.
sites.
All
In
sites.
other words, having all bids must come in so that there's no resubmission after bid number 1 is over.
No, nothing, no, what they've done is, the priority that they've established this year, and it's
Right.
out, is slot 5 is gonna go first. Slot 3 is gonna go the next day. Slot 2 is gonna go the day after that, then it's slot 1 goes the day after that, then they skip till the following week.
When were the applications due?
Pardon?
When were the applications due?
The applications actually come in as the bid.
Oh, at the time that
Yes.
people arrived.
As they're coming in to put their bid in, that's when it comes in.
So why would you not have
Yeah.
all bids due the day
That's
before
right.
slot 5 is open?
Right.
Have them all come in sealed the day before?
Well, because they're requiring people to come in with a cashier's check this
Cashier's
year.
check, so they'd have to have multiple cashier's
Right,
checks,
see, but that's
which
what's
they may
happening.
not have the cash to do.
Right, and that's what, that would limit the number of
Correct,
families
that's
that do it,
why-
right? Because then not
Right.
everybody's gonna come up with $22,000 for
Correct.
3 different
Okay,
slots.
but if I bid on slot number 5,
Okay?
okay, I don't get that bid.
Okay?
I can go out, fill out another one, and bring it in for slot number
3.
Right.
Correct?
Exactly.
Absolutely correct.
That's good.
Now, that's,
Like I said, I
That's,
was
but,
not
that,
involved in
but that's their procedure. We're not actually here to
Yeah.
discuss.
well, I realize that,
yeah.
but it's still something that would come up
Yeah.
if we have to defend this in court, you know. They might not find us guilty, but they
Correct.
might find the city guilty. You know what I mean?
Yeah, again, the procedural change is only to ensure that the city doesn't have a game played on it. We have our money right now. In the past, seriously, this happened.
Yeah.
And it's happened more than once.
I would
Good.
caution the board about debating the pros and cons of this procedure.
Yeah.
It simply, Mr. Conjur's involvement via wife in this
Right.
matter.
I don't have any more questions.
The pure and simple, in the cleanest sense of the word, with it being a competitive sealed bid environment, there's no advantage to anyone, regardless of the amount of information they have from the past, other than you're gonna make a business gamble and go after something. We have people that we've never had all of a sudden show up and get a slot and they're tickled to death. We've had people that have consistently been in some certain spots and they manage to have the right bid every year. They're tickled to death. One of the things they're also doing this year, because of Eugenie is very close to the mayor's office and visits him every year, trying to get this stuff grandfathered. She said, well, I've been doing it as an example. I've been doing it for 16 years. Why can't I just have my slot back? And it's, no, we're gonna keep it competitive, but the mayor suggested this year to Ron, who is the purchasing officer, that we allow people, like we do in other contracts, you're gonna win your base year and you have options to renew for 2 additional years later. So there's the opportunity for them to bid, get a slot this year, work it, and in the beginning of next year, come up with your money again and you got your slot again. So have a 3-year potential, a 3-year.
Which
that
would lower
takes
your
her-
workload as well.
Yes, that would help the workload a little bit, but what it does is the biggest complaint that some of the main players have is they feel like they have to scrape and cut and fight like cats to get the positions. Okay, and so the mayor's sympathetic to that and says, okay, we'll make it a little easier. You protect yourself now and you renew, you're gonna get your slot back. So it takes care of that complaint that's come in religiously.
Okay.
So we're softening parts of it, but we're firming up on the checks. So we don't have, because if somebody has a high bid and then we take them off the thing, then we have to go back and relook at our abstract to see who was the high bidder. And that creates a whole new scramble. So this way, doing one at a time should take that scramble out.
I don't have any questions.
I really appreciate you coming down.
Oh, no, thank you guys.
This
Yeah.
is, I mean, it's something, you see the vendors on the street, but you don't know all what behind it. Ted has more insider knowledge on that.
Yeah.
And if
What's your last name?
Carl.
Oh, got it. Okay, yeah, I'm sitting there going, okay, but you're right.
And if I might bring something up, when you came up to me and I said, let's bring this to the board, it was just in response to this notice of intent. I'm half thinking that I should be telling you that probably should be, that we should convert this maybe to a request for advisory opinion. And I'm not sure about that, I haven't thought that through. But Dave, maybe I can talk to you about that, because that, if the board says this is okay, they'll put out an opinion, and you would not be subject personally to an ethics complaint in the future. It
Okay.
would provide a little protection for you. On the other hand, well, and maybe this is good, it would air it to the world because it's going to be on the municipal website. So
Mhm.
I just bring that up, I should probably, we should probably figure that out at some point, because given the rush of this, I didn't think to say, hey, you might want to
Okay.
put this in the format of request for advisory opinion. So maybe we just deal with this today, depending on what the board says. Maybe at that point, you subsequently
Sure.
put in. Okay, I just wanted-
Yep.
And those can take, I mean, we've already had the pre-discussion with the two members who are not here, and those can take, well, you know, either a special meeting or we have, you know.
Well, and I'm sorry to interrupt, but I think the board's gonna say yea or nay to this.
Right, yeah.
Agree, and then if the board agrees with it, then that might be something for Mr. Cont'd to consider for his own protection.
Yes.
If the board disagrees, the issue is moot, so,
Yeah.
okay.
And truthfully, the other thing, if my wife puts in a bid and she's not selected, then we're still looking at doing this and chasing events like, such as the Iditarod when it's downtown, or Ferrandi's going on. UAA's has their different craft fairs and stuff that are going on, the Made in Alaska stuff.
Mhm.
All the things that in the aircraft museum, when they do the, or with the FedEx hangar, they do that type of thing. So we're still looking at maybe doing that.
Your
Yes.
notice of intent says the submission deadline varies, but just for the purposes of the board, so they know their turnaround time, what's the first deadline you're trying to reach?
The first deadline, I believe, is sometime next week. I think Tuesday. I think the first slot that's available, hang on, this is sketchy, and that's why, you know, I talked with my wife, I said, well, if it takes a week, and we gotta have our week, you know, there's a chance we're not gonna get a shot at any of those in the first round, which would be slot number 5, number 3, number 2, and number 1. And that's fine, if that's what it is, that works. What we've got our eye on, honestly, is a slot that hasn't manned the last couple of years. They haven't been able to get anybody to take the slot and stick there. And that's seriously, it's the spot right behind the back.
Right next to the big globe.
Right off where the going to the sun, where the sun comes out of the sidewalk, where the globe comes up, that little corner right there. That's where this stand was.
For-
What we're looking, it was, before it was Smitty's Poutine, Smitty's, the Canadian kid, the kids that are doing the poutine, they've been talking to us about buying their cart and so forth. So that's what we're actually looking at. And there's no competition, there's nobody, we're not fighting, we're not trying to compete against the big people or anything like that. So that's the other
Yeah,
thing.
you
That
walk
wouldn't
away
happen,
before
that
having-
bid wouldn't happen until the second week.
Okay, if I can suggest we should move forward, because Linda and I
Yeah.
both have to leave in 10 minutes.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
Oh, actually,
And please watch
I
your
need
chair
to get
here.
up there, so I need to leave now.
That's dangerous.
Kinda hard on the
That'll rip something.
Well, if purchasing would approve a new chair.
Not a problem. We can do that.
Right.
Okay, thank you, Dave.
Thank you, guys.
So I will work on this prior one. and-
Thank you, Linda.
Thank you.
You said there was another project we had to get to?
Yeah, that's the issue.
D was much more reasonable in our expectation of time.
I really do think this is sort of a reasonable person standard,
Yeah.
because, you know, his testimony is there isn't inside knowledge there. It's a sealed bid, so there can't be unfair advantage. And again, in our code, appearance of impropriety is not enough, but in this particular case, for the three of you, is it enough? So I think it's a reasonable person standard, and you should give out your, what you think.
Okay. Do you need to leave or do you
No,
want
no,
to
I'll
stick
stay
around?
another 10 minutes.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so in my personal opinion, I would give a yay in that all the information appears, based on testimony and based on what I see here, is available to anybody. If there was any insider information that he could potentially give his wife, then I'd say no. But I'm not seeing anything that I can think of. I'm not a sidewalk vendor. I don't know all the ins and outs of being a sidewalk vendor, but it appears to me that it's okay.
Yeah, and it appears to me that it would be fine, because I truly believe, after listening to this, that any information that would be gained illegally. You know what I mean?
Oh, by looking at the other bids illegally? Okay.
And
The
so,
closed
you know,
bids.
that would be
It's all violation.
another violation then. So, you know, I don't know how we could set it up to where, yeah. There is a possibility that they could gain some information but it would be gained illegally against policy and procedure, so I don't have a problem with it.
Where's the standard that we're actually supposed to be looking at here? Is it 1.025E?
025E, yes.
Acquisition of economic interest.
Mhm.
The municipal employee, a member of the board's household, shall acquire directly or indirectly economic interest to a contract unless the municipal contract is competitively solicited and all other requirements of this chapter are satisfied. Okay, so unless it's competitive, so this is competitively solicited, right? So then it comes down to whether all of the other requirements in the chapter are satisfied. So that would be 1 through. Am I reading this right, Dee?
Yeah, and I guess I'm going to turn the board's attention to 5A.
Okay.
Is my immediate concern.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5A. Neither the municipal employee or the contract shall not be made to a person unless neither the municipal employee nor member of the municipal family works for the administrative department awarding or administering the contract.
Which one is that?
5A, yeah, that's an issue with us.
E5A.
Works for the administrative department awarding, see, under this subsection, moving away from a subsection within that department is not enough.
Right.
That so long as he continues to work in that department, it seems to be a violation. Because I'm with you to the extent that the one concern here seems to me to be the appearance. I don't have a problem. I don't have a problem. I know there's an appearance possibly, but he satisfied me. But I'm concerned about this.
And I'm, by the way, reviewing the other ones at the same time. So
Yeah.
go ahead, Ted.
Right, and I agree there, other than the fact that it's just classified as a municipal contract.
Oh, definitely.
The
Yes.
award of a location.
Yes.
The award of a location.
Yeah. We could look at our definitions for contract as any agreement. I mean, it's very, very broadly defined in municipal. So this is exactly.
And you've
a
discussed
contract.
this particular clause specifically with him?
No, I have not.
Works for administrative department awarding or administering. I don't think there's any question he works for that department.
No, I mean, he does work for that.
No member of the immediate family, so I suppose they could try, he said his stepdaughter, but even then, what is the
Would
immediate?
you mind calling Ron Haddon, 417 on the phone? He's the department head, and let's ask him this
Sure.
question.
Yeah.
Put him on speakerphone.
Has Ron been contacted about this?
Yes, Ron
And so
knows
he's-
about this.
and he's his boss?
Yes.
Okay.
And I can't remember if I discussed this with him or not. Yes, I did discuss this with him, not this clause though. I discussed the fact that I was not going to sign off on the document that this was an ethics board issue. And luckily we were
I'm
meeting.
getting a voicemail. Is there a
Okay.
secretary around that I can call?
What did I just do?
What's the definition of immediate family?
That's in the very back, 110.
Right.
Oh, it's wife for sure.
And it could
No,
definitely-
he
Yeah.
mentioned his stepdaughter.
Oh, okay.
If she lives in the house with him. I would
Yeah,
imagine.
immediate family, spouse, child, including stepchild.
Oh, there you go. So
So
he
it's
was
in
his
there.
stepdaughter.
Yeah, no, they weren't really.
I'm just wondering whether he would,
Usually someone answers it, that's what's interesting, that when.
For 4170.
Can you try 4249?
Hi Warner, this is Lisa. I am currently Lisa from the municipal clerk's office. We are actually looking for Ron Haddon and weren't able to get him at his line. Is he around the office? Do you
So this
know?
is for
I
ethics
do
board.
too,
I want his
but
wife
according
to
to
do it.
this,
But
he can't.
Well, we're currently in a board of ethics meeting, and we had a question that we would like to ask of him if he has a couple of minutes.
Two or three families would get them all the time. I would love.
Well, we can put him on speaker. That's okay with him.
Yeah, I was gonna say, how does he know you? I mean, what was that?
Okay, thank you.
He's been with purchasing for a long time, and I've dealt with when I was on.
When you're on the assembly.
Yeah, and on the police department.
Oh, okay. So you've had many contacts.
And, you know, I have been involved in other contracts that go through purchasing.
Yeah, have you had your own hot dog stand?
Yeah. No, no, but I tell you what, we did have police officers, wife,
Before you
doing
move on,
that.
would you suggest we do the Bill, then we gotta have another meeting?
About
When
one
it
thing?
first came
Oh,
out,
the other
Frank
thing.
knew that he was a municipal
We'd have to have
Or
employee.
unless we could ask him to postpone for a couple of weeks. or
Yeah, we can
something.
Even though she didn't work in the same department. And who ruled against it?
The other board at that time.
Really?
Yeah.
Yes, this is all on the record, by the way.
Did you know that?
Which is
That
fine.
this board had previously decided in a similar situation not to allow?
Hi Ron, may I put you on speakerphone? We're currently in a Board of Ethics meeting.
Had a hot dog.
Okay, I have Ron on speaker.
And,
Hey, can I interrupt?
Hold
real
that
quick?
thought, will you?
Hey, Ron, this is Dee. We've been listening we've been talking about the Dave Cloninger matter.
Okay.
And there's one code section that we are concerned may apply to him. And David, if you could read it, and I apologize to the board, I have
Yeah.
a
No, that's
conference
fine.
call Department of Justice, so.
Ron?
Yes.
Ron, this is David Nesbitt. I'm one of the members of the board. And what we were just discussing, we just had some testimony from Mr. Is it Cloninger?
Cloninger.
Cloninger. And we discussed with him various issues as far as the appearance of impropriety or any kind of obvious conflict. And what we ended up doing is going back to the code section that governs this type of request. And the one that sort of popped out as a red flag is this one section. I won't read it to you because it'll probably go in one ear and out the other. But essentially it says, the award of a municipal contract, and this is a municipal contract, as our understanding, the hot dog stand solicitation, shall not be made to a person or entity governed by this section unless neither the municipal employee nor a member of the employee's immediate family works for the administrative department awarding or administering the contract. The reason that comes to our concern is because our understanding is that Mr. Cloninger has volunteered or has already begun the process of removing himself from the bidding process. But our understanding is he still works within the department that awards or administers the contract. And so we just wanted to talk to you briefly to see if you had any thoughts on that.
Well, Dave works within the purchasing department. The purchasing department awards, and it's really not a contract. We award I'm trying to think what the best word would be.
Competitive process to select the vendor,
Yeah.
and we're out of it.
Yeah, we
You not
conduct.
administer the contract.
Yeah, that was Warner speaking. We conduct a competitive process that awards the contract, but we do not administer it. That is done by the right-of-way department. And contract is kind of a misnomer because we actually award them the ability to run the spot, for lack of better words, but they have to obtain approval from DHHS if it's a food permit, and then also from right-of-way, they have to get approval from right-of-way.
Who conducts the meeting where the bids are presented and opened and then the checks are approved and the person is selected?
The purchasing department does that.
Okay. Okay. So the question is whether, so the question for us to determine then is whether this is a contract, and two, whether the purchasing department awards the contract if it isn't a contract, because it sounds like the purchasing does not administer the contract. Is that your understanding?
That is correct. Purchasing does not administer the resultant, I'll call it an agreement.
Right, I understand.
Yeah,
Okay.
but we do actually oversee the process. It is a full and open competitive process. The award is based on bids, sealed bids that come, in the case of this one, sealed quotes that come in. We open the quotes publicly and then base our award on who the high-priced, what the high-priced quote is for that particular site.
Our really play in this this Warner, really our only play in this is to give the process to go and make it a full and open process, so there's no game involved in it.
Right. No, and I don't mean to speak out of turn from this board, but we really appreciated you coming down here and speaking to us, and this is something that we want to do. What we don't want to do is run afoul of the code that we are obligated to follow.
No, I understand it. I understand you're in a delicate process right now.
Right.
That's why we want to make sure that you've got all the information that you need to make the decision, whatever decision that you make.
Right. Okay, good. Thank you, sirs. I appreciate your time. I don't have any other questions. Do you have any questions?
No.
No? Okay, we're good. Thank you very much for your time.
So they can dance around the word contract, but my understanding the word of the contract is a meeting of minds, and then you have to have consideration, and that's exactly what we have.
I understand his point, and it's a lot like yours. Is this truly what you would think of as being a contract? I think Dee is right, though, that legally and under the code, the terminology of a contract is probably pretty broad. Do we have a? I wish Dee were here. Do we have a definition of contract?
It doesn't say contract.
Where are you looking?
Under, it says here on the front,
Where's our definition?
definitions, it
section?
says 1.15.030 definitions. Description,
030?
yeah, and I don't see it there in mine.
030, is that what our definition
It says
says?
additional
There's
provisions.
a definition in 110 for
Okay,
contract,
that's
it's
what-
F.
What?
Where? Okay, show us that.
1.15110 F.
Okay, all right, that's what I
Okay,
thought.
well,
Okay, so
it says 115.
EF. Okay, contract means a business contract. Thank you. Yes, that's very helpful. Who wrote this thing? You're defining
Julia.
contract
That's
by
what
calling
I'm
it a contract. Thank you, Julia. Okay, a purchase order, a lease, a grant, a loan, or similar instrument of municipal government.
It's a
Instrument? Are you
permit.
kidding me?
It's the
That
same
is
thing.
that is extremely broad. An instrument. Thank you, Julia. Are we on the record still?
Wow.
We should play that back for her. I said that with all due affection, but seriously.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
but reading that definition and reading the
Yeah,
prohibited acts, he can't do that.
I agree. It seems pretty cut and dry.
Although we're sympathetic with
Yeah.
his desire to do it, and
I
I
know.
think he's done everything he can
Yeah.
to, but until we get a change from
In the
the
code.
assembly in the
Well,
code.
this is what I would say. Okay, let's go back to that section again.
Good.
One,
Give them
is
the
it
definition of contract, give them one.
025, where are we at?
025 E.
E5.
E5.
Right? Okay, this would be my concern. This would be my analysis. One is we are sympathetic. And I would say that on a first blush, it passes my sniff test, you might say. I don't like that expression, but you know what I'm saying. Like, I don't have a problem with it because I think it is competitively bid, and I think it's all open to the public. I don't think that his wife would have any particular advantage. That being said, under this particular code section, to read it very carefully, an award of a municipal contract shall not be made to a person or entity governed by 115025. See, governed by.
There's double
We are
negatives,
governed by
so it's
this.
kind of hard to
No, I
read
know.
this.
But I would, unless
Unless they triple
the
negatives.
employee or the member of the employee works for the administrative department. The question here, to me, comes down to whether this is a contract. I would say under our interpretation of the definition of a contract, under the code section that we just talked about,
It is a contract.
it appears to be that the bid process will
Yeah.
result in
They are awarding the bid, there's
They're
no question
awarding the
about
bid.
that. They're awarding the bid.
Well, and that's the second issue, which is whether purchasing, which is the administrative department involved here, awards the contract. And so I would say that you just can't get around those
And
conditions.
then include the definition of contract.
Right. Exactly. Well,
Because
see, here's
there's
the
a
thing.
contract under the definition.
The Ron, what was his last name?
Haddon.
Haddon, the department head.
Mhm.
He admitted. I shouldn't say admit. That's not the right word. He
Informed
agreed.
us.
He informed us that his purchasing department awards, whether or not it administers it is a whole different issue, but it
He awarded.
awards the instrument, right? And that the instrument whether it's a contract or not, or whether this would be considered a business contract, or whether it's considered an instrument of the municipality, the reality is, it's still a contract under the
definition of contract.
So, and the member of the employee's immediate family is his wife. So, I'm sorry, Dave's wife is the person who'd be soliciting the contract. So, I see a real problem here.
Yeah, I don't see how we can approve it.
No.
I don't.
As much as I want to,
Yeah.
and based on my previous comment.
Right.
You know, what's interesting to me is that you
But when you
mentioned.
read those two,
Yeah.
there's just no way.
You know, what's interesting to me is you said earlier that a person from a spouse of the police department officer
Right.
was denied. Was that under a different code at the time?
I
or?
don't remember.
Okay, so it's not really.
But like I said,
Well, it was
this
prior
was
to
back
2006,
when they first
right?
started it.
Yeah, that was the previous code.
Yeah, and
Okay,
when they
so
first
that's-
started it.
Okay, so it's
it
not really
was,
worth discussing.
yeah.
I'm just curious because here I would think that a spouse of a police officer would be able
Under
to-
this one, yes.
As long as
Under
it
this
were,
code.
yeah, as long as it wasn't.
Okay.
As long as it wasn't awarded by them.
Yeah.
Or administered, so.
Well, but he, what? Right, but he didn't by APD.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Okay.
So, and we don't have time, you know, on this particular case, there's no way to make a change in our code.
No.
No.
And I'm not willing to do, you know, even though we possibly have the ability to interpret, I don't see how anybody could change the interpretation.
I can't.
Some of this stuff is based on interpretation, this is pretty clear.
Yeah, I can't interpret it any other way.
I don't think so.
So,
No, are there your notes reflecting these different sections? I was trying to organize the thoughts in a way that would almost translate into like a dictation of a note. So, is there any reason to revisit this?
no. I mean, it's
Yeah.
cut and dried. Now, do we want to just type up a letter, send them a letter? Or
Let's do this.
Call them down here
This would be my suggestion.
and tell them. to his
My
face?
suggestion would be, it seemed to me that this caught Dee off guard, and then she had to run to her meeting.
Yeah.
Is there a way, now, of course, they need an answer in a week though, don't they?
Or within, you know.
Who would
Here,
it?
this would be my suggestion, is to provisionally, deny it, or decline to accept it? I don't know what this would be, but to say this is not okay. But I would also like to have input from Dee,
Well, let's,
in case we're missing something. I mean, I'd like to have her context.
She did not, or she made this mention of this, or was it you actually mentioned this?
Yes.
She didn't bring up this section.
Well, I said, let's look at the standard, and she said, let's look at this section.
yeah.
Because,
And,
and let's see, what are these other ones? 30, I didn't look at these other subsections.
it says right here, look under 11 of the application.
Yeah.
It says, notice is filed by an employee under my supervision, and then it goes down and lists that, and then the name of the board, commission chair, or board commission signature and date, and isn't that when you do?
Yeah, they want me to sign off on it, and
Yeah.
I can't sign
Oh,
off on
I
it.
see,
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Well, no, that's not what that is. That if the person bringing this forward were on a board or a commission, that's the line he would have
Oh,
signed.
Oh, I see.
They just wanted, he just got a couple of signatures here, so he marked through and just took up another line. But his
Oh, okay.
line was this MOA
But there's
department.
no place on this form that we can deny
I wish,
approval.
I think part of this would be, Dee would be able to explain to him why, because as of right now, we're not gonna issue anything, right? It's just gonna be a flat denial.
Right,
No, we're gonna issue that we feel he has a conflict.
Are we gonna do it?
Per 1.15.025
E5.
E5.
Yeah, are we
And
gonna issue something?
The definition of contract.
And
And, you know, plus the definition of the contract. Yeah.
so I think what this comes down to is, this is already posted online, so he's already met a deadline for, filling out this paperwork and having it submitted at least 7 days before. I think what it comes down to in not accepting this form
Mhm.
is he can't bid.
He can't, yeah.
Yeah, he just can't bid. I mean,
Or his
it's,
wife can't bid, right?
Yeah, it's
But this is not a notice of potential violation that would require some kind of written explanation on it.
no. I was going to ask, what product are you
Yeah.
wanting to
Well,
put out,
that's what I
because
was
there's
gonna
no
say. You know,
set
we can
product.
call
You can
him
just
down here and
talk to him and tell
face
him.
that, no, we're not, we're stating you have a conflict.
But if you want further collaboration with Dee, you might not do that now. You might just bounce it back to Dee and have her, go over it. Maybe Dee can speak with him.
Can we go off record just a minute?